George Takei, and They Called Us Enemy. So George Takei was born in 1937 in Los Angeles to Japanese American parents. He's probably best known for his role as Hikiru Sulu on the television series Star Trek, but he's also quite an outspoken advocate for social justice issues in the United States. Since that famous role, he's been a public speaker about a number of issues such as racism against Asian Americans in the United States. The role of Hikiru Sulu shouldn't be overlooked, though. It was a role that broke many Asian stereotypes on television from the period. He was a key member of the crew with an important leadership position as helmsman that required decisiveness and taking charge. Quite a different character than you would see for many of the other Asian American characters on television. He was capable, authoritative, and an equal member of a diverse multinational crew. He was confident, brave, and a good person. It's one of the reasons why his role is so famous and he's become so associated with it. Takei has written and talked quite a bit about his incarceration experience here in the United States. As many of you may be aware, Japanese Americans were forcibly relocated and imprisoned in internment camps by the U.S. government during World War II. Takei believes Americans have not been taught adequately about the experience, and he's told the story in an autobiography, a TED Talk, and a Broadway musical. In addition, he's explored the use of graphic formats, visual formats, to reach new audiences for his story. Here's a short clip from Takei's TED Talk in which he discusses his experience.
I am the grandson of immigrants from Japan who went to America, boldly going to a strange new world, seeking new opportunities. I was 4 years old when Pearl Harbor was bombed on December 7th, 1941 by Japan. And overnight, the world was plunged into a world war. America suddenly was swept up by hysteria. Japanese Americans, American citizens of Japanese ancestry, were looked on with suspicion and fear and with outright hatred, simply because we happened to look like the people that bombed Pearl Harbor. And the hysteria grew and grew until on February 1942, the President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, ordered all Japanese Americans on the west coast of America to be summarily rounded up, with no charges, with no trial, with no due process. We were to be rounded up and imprisoned in 10 barbed wire prison camps in some of the most desolate places in America.
The graphic novel that we're reading, our case study of ethnocentrism and racism, is called They Called Us Enemy. So this graphic novel uses a sequential series of illustrations accompanied by text to tell his story of Japanese American internment. George Takei, since he's not a novelist, he's not a cartoonist, he's collaborated with Justin Eisinger and Stephen Scott on the writing of the story, and the artist Harmony Becker for the illustrations. Becker herself researched and created the grayscale, shoujo, Japanese manga-inspired illustrations. The main themes of the graphic novel are exploring the impact, of racism and injustice in America, particularly through the lens of this personal experience as a Japanese American incarcerated in the period. It talks and discusses his childhood experience of being forcibly removed from his home and placed in an internment camp along with his family and thousands of other Japanese Americans. Now, of course, It also is covering, right, the trauma and the challenges that he and others faced, as well as the broader implications of the story for American history and democracy. In many ways, it's a memoir reflecting on his resilience, the continuing struggle against issues such as racism within the U.S. civil rights, and the importance really of remembering and learning from history to prevent similar injustice in the future. So to conclude, we're shifting to George Takei, an important Japanese-American personage. Takei has created many different media forms to communicate about experiences of racism in the United States by Japanese Americans. In our next component of the course, we're going to begin to analyze through social science and visual methods this graphic novel, They Called Us Enemy.